I stood in my aunt's living room, my hands still clutching the carefully wrapped wedding gift I had spent weeks preparing. My heart was light, full of anticipation. "I can't wait for the ceremony tomorrow," I said, smiling brightly. But Aunt Ruth didn't smile back. Her expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, but I saw it. Her eyes flickered with something between sorrow and guilt. She took a slow breath and asked, "Melanie, would you like some coffee?" "Sure," I replied, trying to shake off the strange tension in the air. As she walked to the kitchen, I glanced at the photo album left open on the coffee table. I leaned down, flipping the page out of curiosity, and my entire world tilted. There, frozen in glossy print, were images of my family. My brother Ethan, his bride Chelsea, my parents, aunts, uncles, even distant cousins I hadn't seen in years. All of them smiling in a beautiful garden surrounded by flowers and fairy lights. Aunt Ruth returned with 2 mugs and paused when she saw what I was looking at. "What is this?" I asked, my voice tight. "Is this from a rehearsal?" She set the coffee down and sat beside me. "The wedding?" she said softly. "It was last weekend." My breath caught. "But the invitation said tomorrow," I whispered. "I know," she said, tears in her eyes. "They gave you the wrong date on purpose." Silence filled the room like smoke. "I'm so sorry, Melanie. I told Ethan this was cruel. I told your parents. I almost didn't go." I closed the album. I could barely hear my own thoughts over the pounding in my chest. They didn't forget me. They excluded me. Intentionally. And just like that, the gift I brought, the dress I bought, the hope I had carefully nurtured for weeks, all of it shattered in a single breath. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was war. My name is Melanie Carter, and for as long as I can remember, I've been invisible to the people who were supposed to love me first. Growing up in a quiet suburb outside of Milwaukee, I was the middle child with nothing special to offer. Not the golden boy like Ethan, not the baby like Lily. Just Melanie, the quiet one, the helper, the extra pair of hands no one asked for but always expected. My childhood memories are filled with family dinners where I set the table but was rarely asked how school was. Christmases where everyone opened matching sweaters while mine was a different shade or missing entirely. Birthday parties forgotten. Once, when I turned 16, I waited the whole evening for a dinner that never happened. My mom sent a text the next morning, "Happy belated birthday. Hope you're doing well." I told myself it wasn't personal, that they were busy, that they meant well. I held on to that hope for far too long. I moved out at 19 and built a life for myself. I started in graphic design, then transitioned into digital marketing. I found my niche working with small businesses and real estate firms. Over time, I became financially stable, more than stable, really. I made smart investments, started a property management company, and eventually became the silent force behind several local businesses. But no one in my family ever asked what I did. To them, I was still just messing with computers. I never felt the need to brag. I thought if I just stayed useful, stayed kind, they'd see me. Maybe one day they'd ask me to come home for Thanksgiving. Maybe my mother would call without asking for a favor. Maybe Ethan would introduce me as his sister with pride. That day never came. Only Aunt Ruth ever saw me. She called on weekends. She remembered my birthday. She asked about my projects. She said she was proud of how I stood on my own. She was the only one who ever asked, "Don't you feel lonely?" I always laughed and said no. But the truth was, yes, I did. Especially when the only family I had pretended I didn't exist. The invitation arrived on a Thursday. I was sorting through my mail, mostly credit card offers and catalogs, when I noticed the thick envelope with gold foil edging. My heart skipped. It was addressed to me, in elegant handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Ethan Carter and Chelsea Monroe." The ceremony was listed for June 24th, with a reception to follow at the Lakeside Orchid Estate. Black tie. RSVP requested. For a few seconds, I just stood there, frozen in my apartment hallway. I reread the card twice, making sure it wasn't a mistake. But no, it had my name, my address. My brother had invited me. After years of being left out, of being the afterthought, the shadow, The invisible sibling. This felt like light cracking through a door I thought was sealed shut. I cried. Not out of sadness, but because for the first time in years I felt seen. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I picked out a soft navy gown with delicate embroidery along the sleeves. I ordered a customized decanter set with Ethan and Chelsea's initials etched in gold. I booked an appointment to have my hair styled, my nails done. Every little detail mattered, because I believed this invitation wasn't just a formality. I believed it was an olive branch. A signal that maybe, just maybe, things were changing. That perhaps I wasn't the outsider anymore. That someone in my family had looked at a list of names and thought, yes, Melanie belongs here. And for a little while, that hope kept me warm. Until the moment I realized it had all been a lie. Aunt Ruth's hands were shaking when she set the coffee tray down. I sat there, stunned, staring at the wedding album, like it might rearrange itself if I blinked enough times. My throat was dry, but I forced the words out. "You said the wedding was last weekend?" She nodded, her eyes glossy. "I tried to tell you, Melanie. I really did. But I couldn't find the words. I was ashamed." I looked down at the photos again. Page after page of smiling faces. Ethan in a sharp navy tux. Chelsea in a lace gown that shimmered beneath strings of fairy lights. Our parents beaming beside them. Champagne toasts, group shots, dancing. And not a single sign that anyone had even noticed I wasn't there. But I got the invitation, I whispered. It said tomorrow. Aunt Ruth exhaled shakily. "Your mother and Ethan planned it that way. They didn't want you to come, but they also didn't want to deal with confrontation. So they gave you a false date. They figured by the time you realized it would be too late." My pulse thudded in my ears. I felt like a fool. I'd spent weeks preparing. I had chosen that gift with care. I had spent hours imagining where I would sit, what I would say, what it might feel like to be included again. It had never been real. "I don't understand," I said. "Why go to such lengths? What did I do?" Aunt Ruth squeezed my hand. "It's not you, sweetheart. It's them. They've always treated you like some inconvenient echo, and I hate that I didn't do more." I stood up, my whole body trembling. "I need to hear it from them." She tried to stop me. "Melanie, don't go alone. This kind of cruelty, it leaves bruises you can't see." "I have to," I said. "I need to stop wondering. I need to hear them say it." She nodded reluctantly. "Then, promise me something. Whatever happens, remember this: you are strong. You have always been strong, and I will always be your family." I hugged her tightly, tears sliding down my cheeks. Then I got in my car and drove straight to my parents' house. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I needed clarity. And that day, I got it. Their laughter stopped the moment I walked through the door. My parents were sitting in the living room with Ethan and Chelsea, casually flipping through wedding photos. The scent of coffee and lemon cake lingered in the air. My presence turned everything cold. "Melanie?" My mother blinked. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at Ethan. The wedding was last weekend. A flicker of discomfort crossed his face. Chelsea's lips pressed into a tight line. "Yes," my mother said, avoiding eye contact. "It was a small ceremony." Small. The album in Aunt Ruth's house showed over 50 people. "I got the invitation," I said, my voice strained, "for a different date." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Because we never meant for you to come." There it was. Cold, simple, brutal. "We didn't want you ruining it," he continued. "You're always quiet, always watching. It makes people uncomfortable. I just wanted one perfect day, and that meant without you." I turned to my parents. My mother crossed her arms. "You've always been difficult, Melanie. Like a ghost in the background, present but never truly part of anything." My father spoke quickly, trying to soften the moment. "We just didn't want any tension. We thought it best to keep things simple." "By pretending I didn't exist?" I asked. "You're disrupting the peace we've built," my mother said flatly. "Disrupting the peace. By wanting to belong." Ethan stood. "This conversation is exactly why we didn't invite you. Take the hint, Melanie. We don't want you." Time froze. I looked around the room at faces I once called family and saw only strangers. "I see," I said quietly. And without another word, I turned and walked out. Outside, I called Aunt Ruth. Thank you, I told her, my voice shaking. Thank you for being the only one who's ever stood by me. Always, she said, because family isn't about blood, it's about love. Her words stayed with me on the drive home. And that's when I knew I was done begging for scraps of love. Done proving I was worthy. That night, something in me changed forever. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in my apartment, staring at the wedding invitation still pinned to the fridge. The gold letters, once so full of promise, now felt like a cruel joke. I removed it carefully, folded it once, and set it in a drawer. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't interested in revenge. That's never been who I am. What I wanted was distance, closure, freedom from this endless cycle of rejection. And the truth is, I had the means to get it. No one in my family had ever asked how I paid my bills or what I did for work. They assumed I scraped by doing something vaguely related to websites. They never knew that for the past 6 years, I'd been building a solid income through digital marketing, specializing in SEO and client acquisition for real estate firms. Eventually, I reinvested those earnings into property, quietly, strategically. I now own 3 residential properties in Illinois and part of a commercial space downtown. And the family home, my parents' so-called cottage, was legally mine. Years ago, when they had fallen behind on payments, I'd purchased my mother's share through a private deal, shielding it under my LLC. I let them stay, rent-free, paying the taxes and upkeep through anonymous grants issued by my business. I thought I was helping. I thought maybe someday they'd appreciate it. They never did. So now I was done. I called Susan Wong, my attorney, and told her everything. They've been emotionally abusive for years, I said. They don't even realize I've been supporting them. Susan was calm, efficient. Then we'll start with a restraining order, and we'll shut down all financial contributions. You don't owe them anything. The next few days were a blur of documents, emails, screenshots, and court forms. I compiled photos, chat records, and most importantly, the invitation that proved their deceit. A month later, the court granted a temporary restraining order. I froze the account funding the home repairs. I notified my property manager to end all maintenance support. And then I waited. The first phone call came from my mother. "Melanie, what is this? We're your family." "Not anymore," I said. And I meant it. The cottage sat on the edge of a quiet lake, wrapped in pine trees and old memories. It had once belonged to my grandparents. After they passed, it was passed to my mother and her siblings, but eventually my parents bought out the shares. At least that's what the family believed. What they didn't know was that years later, when my parents couldn't make the mortgage, I stepped in, quietly, legally. Through my company, I bought the property from my mother to protect it from foreclosure. They never asked how the roof got fixed, or why the property taxes stopped showing up. They just assumed miracles happened. But the miracle was me. Now it was time to stop playing the ghost behind the scenes. Susan called one morning. "The title's clean. Your LLC holds full ownership. You can proceed with the eviction." "Do it," I said. A formal eviction notice was prepared, giving them 30 days to vacate the property. I asked a second attorney, Michael Zong, to join me and Susan for the delivery along with the county sheriff, just in case. We pulled into the gravel driveway on a Monday morning. My father opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. His voice cracked when he said, "Melanie, won't you come in?" "No," I said calmly. "Michael?" Michael stepped forward and handed him the envelope. "Mr. Carter, this is a legal notice of eviction. You have 30 days to vacate the premises and return the keys." My father stared at the paper. "But this is our home." "It was," I said, my voice steady. "Now it's mine." My mother appeared in the doorway. Her face went pale. "You're kicking us out. After everything we've done for you." I looked her in the eyes. "After everything I did for you, with no thanks, no recognition. And now this, yes, I am." "We have nowhere to go," she said. "You can stay with Ethan," I replied. "He made it clear I wasn't family. Now I'm making it clear that I don't belong to this one, either." My father stepped forward, his eyes welling. "Please, don't do this, we're sorry." "You had years," I said softly. "You chose silence, you chose exclusion. and now I choose myself. They had 30 days. On the 31st, the locks were changed. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. 3 months passed. The lake cottage had been sold. I used part of the money to reinvest in a new property project, and part one quietly donated to a nonprofit that helped young women estranged from their families. I thought that chapter of my life was closed. Until the front desk at my office buzzed. "Hi, Melanie. There's a couple here. They say their name is Carter. They're asking to see you." My heart sank. Technically, they weren't violating the restraining order as long as they stayed in the building's public lobby. "I'll be down in 5 minutes," I said, though my body didn't want to move. I took the elevator slowly, breathing through the storm rising in my chest. When the doors opened, I saw them. My parents. Older, thinner, worn down. My father's shoulders were hunched. My mother looked smaller somehow. Her wedding ring was gone. His shoes had a hole in the side. "Melanie," she said, voice trembling. "Please, can we talk?" I stepped back instinctively. "The restraining order is still active." "We know," my father said, "but we had no other way." "We lost everything," my mother said. "After the eviction, we tried to rent a place. But rent was too high. The car broke down. We're living in a motel, just barely." I didn't speak. I let the silence settle. "We went to Ethan," my father added. "But things are strained. They couldn't help. Or wouldn't." My mother looked at me, eyes glistening. "We know you have the means. You've always been so capable, so caring. You always helped us, even when we didn't ask." "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I helped you because I thought I had to earn love. Because I thought if I gave enough, you'd see me." Tears slipped down her cheek. "Can't we put the past behind us?" I looked through the glass lobby windows. Outside, the golden leaves of early autumn drifted in the wind. "It's not about the past," I said. "It's about who I am now, and who you chose not to know." Then I turned, walked back into the elevator, and left them behind. Again. It's been over a year now. I bought a small house by the lake, nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I wake up early, make my coffee, watch the sunrise without waiting for anyone's approval. I still speak to Aunt Ruth every Sunday. She's the only one who never made me feel like a stranger in my own life. For so long, I wanted a seat at their table. Now, I've built my own. And the peace I've found? It's not loud, it's not dramatic. But it's real. And for the first time, it's enough. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by the people who were supposed to love you, know this. You are not the problem, you are not alone. And you deserve a life that feels like your own. If this story touched you, please like, share, and leave a comment below.